in Suffolk County today released those tapes, hoping to help unravel the 12-year-old Gilgo Beach mystery. Today, a bit of a shocking finding. Police now say that they do not believe that Shannan Gilbert's death.
In May 2010, a panicked 911 call followed by cries for help marked the last time anyone heard from her. Shannan Gilbert, a 24-year-old escort from Jersey City, had arrived at the home of her client, Joseph Brewer, just hours before the 911 call.
Yeah, there's somebody after me.
I'm sorry?
There's somebody after me.
Where are you?
There's somebody after me.
Okay, where are you?
There's somebody after me.
Where are you, ma'am?
I don't know.
You're driving right now?
No, I'm inside the house.
But as the call unfolded, Shannan's panicked voice revealed a desperate struggle for survival. Her cries for help would be the last time anyone heard from her. For years, Shannan's case stalled, with no solid evidence linking her death to the increasing number of bodies found in the same area. As time passed, confusion mounted, and the identity of the perpetrator remained unknown. What exactly happened to Shannan Gilbert, and why was her case delayed for so long? Shannan Gilbert worked as an escort, advertising her services online. Like many in similar circumstances, Shannan struggled with mental health issues, abusive relationships, and financial difficulties. On May 1st, 2010, she traveled to Oak Beach, a quiet community on Long Island, to meet Joseph Brewer. That night changed everything. Upon arriving at Brewer's home, Shannan reportedly became extremely frightened. Something had clearly alarmed her. Overcome with fear, she fled his house, running through the streets of Oak Beach, banging on doors and shouting for help. During this time, she made a frantic 911 call telling the dispatcher, "Someone is after me and they're trying to kill me."
Where are you, Shannan? Hello? Hello?
The call abruptly ended and Shannan disappeared into the night. Her sudden disappearance was alarming, particularly given the fear in her voice during the call. However, authorities initially had little evidence to work with. Despite ongoing searches, no significant breakthroughs occurred, and the case seemed to hit a dead end. It wasn't until December 2011, more than a year after Shannan went missing, that the investigation saw progress. Her skeletal remains were discovered in a marshy area near Oak Beach, not far from where she was last seen. Although the location was remote, it was unclear how she had ended up there. Initially, investigators theorized her death was accidental, possibly caused by drowning or hypothermia.
It's really, really hard because I miss her so much.
Her body was found face down in shallow water, which seemed to support the idea of drowning. However, there were no clear signs of physical trauma, and the circumstances remained suspicious. How could a distressed woman end up alone in such a desolate area? Was it truly an accident, or was foul play involved?
Then they will also connect the other murders to Gilgo Beach, and we could stop a serial killer.
Marie Gilbert, Shannan's mother, refused to believe her daughter's death was an accident. She was convinced Shannan had been murdered and became one of the most outspoken critics of the investigation. Marie tirelessly fought for answers and justice for her daughter. Marie also questioned why authorities initially failed to investigate a potential connection between Shannan's disappearance and the Long Island serial killer cases. Her advocacy brought renewed attention to Shannan's case, which had been overshadowed by the discovery of multiple other victims linked to LISK. To uncover the truth, Marie enlisted the help of Dr. Michael Barden, a renowned forensic pathologist, to perform an independent autopsy on Shannan's remains.
If you listen carefully to the detective, they have not a scintilla of evidence that she died of a tragic accident.
Dr. Barden's findings were shocking. he determined that Shannan's death was consistent with strangulation, pointing to homicide rather than an accidental drowning. He noted damage to a small bone in her throat, strongly suggesting strangulation as the cause of death.
We saw that the little hyoid bone, the bone in your neck, that if a woman is strangled, it's fractured. It was fractured. And Biden declared that her killing was consistent, her death was consistent with homicide.
This revelation strengthened Mari Gilbert's fight for justice, but left lingering questions. Was Shannan's death connected to the Long Island serial killer? Could her death be linked to the same person responsible for the other bodies found along Ocean Parkway? As part of her efforts, Mari pushed for the release of Shannan's 21-minute 911 call from the night she disappeared. For years, the Suffolk County Police withheld the recording. In 2022, after Mari's passing, the tape was finally made public. On the call, Shannan's voice is filled with terror as she pleads, "Someone is after me." The call ends abruptly, leaving no doubt that she believed she was in imminent danger. The release of the 911 call only deepened the mystery.
Where are you, Shannan? Hello? Hello?
Shannan's fear was palpable, but the question remained, who was she running from? Was it her client, Joseph Brewer, or something more sinister? Despite Dr. Baden's findings and the disturbing 911 call, Suffolk County authorities maintained that Shannan's death was likely accidental. In 2022, then Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison stated in a press conference that the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit reviewed the case and concluded her death was not a homicide.
That law enforcement has out here in Suffolk County. I do have to take advantage of this opportunity and thank the teamwork, the effort, the work by all the members of the task force allowing us to get to this point today. It was a collaborative effort. The resilient work that was done.
He suggested exposure to the harsh marshland conditions or accidental drowning as the probable cause. This conclusion was met with widespread skepticism. Shannan's family and supporters argued that the evidence did not support the theory of an accidental death. The Long Island serial killer case, one of the most notorious unsolved serial murder investigations in the United States, added to the intrigue. Between 1996 and 2010, the remains of at least 10 victims, most of them women involved in sex work, were found along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. 4 of these victims, known as the Gilgo 4, were discovered in December 2010 and were believed to have been killed by the same individual. Initially, Shannan's case was considered unrelated, but the similarities and the proximity of her remains to the other victims led many to suspect she could have been another victim of the Long Island serial killer. Shannan Gilbert's tragic death continues to raise questions and fuel speculation about what really happened that night in Oak Beach. The Long Island serial killer case, often referred to as LISK, remains one of the most infamous unsolved mysteries in the United States. Between 1996 and 2010, the bodies of at least 10 people, most of them women, involved in sex work, were discovered along the desolate Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach.
How sure are you, as you're sitting here now, that Rex Juerman is the Long Island serial killer?
So we're just at the beginning stages of this case, but we would not have brought this indictment if we weren't confident in our case.
He took away somebody's mother, somebody's daughter, somebody's sister, and not just one person, multiple individuals.
Among these victims were the Gilgo 4, whose remains were found in December 2010. It is widely believed that these 4 women were all killed by the same perpetrator. Initially, Shannan Gilbert's case was thought to be unrelated to the others, but the eerie similarities between her disappearance and the murders of the other victims raised suspicions. Many believe that Shannan's tragic death may also be linked to the Long Island serial killer due to the uncanny parallels in circumstances and the chilling events surrounding her last moments. Over the years, countless theories have emerged about the identity and motives of the Long Island serial killer. Speculation has been rampant, with investigators, experts, and the public all proposing different explanations for the killer's patterns. Yet, despite numerous hypotheses, no definitive suspect has been identified, leaving both investigators and the public grappling with the unresolved mystery. One prominent theory suggests that the killer may be someone who lives locally and has an intimate knowledge of the area. The victims' bodies were discovered in secluded locations along a remote stretch of Ocean Parkway, a desolate and quiet road leading from Gilgo Beach to Oak Beach. This isolated area, frequented by few, would likely be familiar only to those who lived nearby or visited regularly. Proponents of this theory argue that the killer's ability to evade detection for so long points to someone with a deep understanding of the area's geography, allowing them to carefully select hidden spots to dispose of the bodies. This familiarity may have given the killer a significant advantage, enabling them to act without drawing attention to themselves. Another aspect of this theory is the notion that the killer specifically targeted vulnerable women, many of whom were sex workers. These women were seen as less likely to be reported missing or to spark thorough investigations, making them easy targets. The victims' professions, combined with their social circumstances, may have made them particularly susceptible to the predator's calculated approach. Such factors could have emboldened the killer, allowing them to operate without fear of immediate repercussions. The idea of a local killer is further supported by the precision with which the bodies were hidden. Many were found in locations that were difficult to access, suggesting meticulous planning and a methodical approach. This level of caution indicates a perpetrator who not only understood the terrain, but also knew how to blend into the community without arousing suspicion. This careful strategy enabled them to remain undetected for years, despite the growing number of victims. Another compelling theory posits that the killer may have had law enforcement or criminal justice experience. Advocates of this idea argue that the killer's ability to evade capture and the calculated manner in which the bodies were disposed of suggest an understanding of police investigative techniques.
As well as act as camouflage. It was probably the biggest case we ever had, and we put a tremendous amount of effort into that case.
The placement of the victims in remote, hard-to-search areas indicates a sophisticated awareness of how to avoid leaving evidence behind. Some speculate that the killer's familiarity with law enforcement procedures allowed them to stay several steps ahead of investigators, ensuring they avoided detection. This theory has fueled rumors that the killer could be a former or current police officer. Someone with such knowledge would likely know how to mislead investigators, obscure evidence, and exploit procedural loopholes. This possibility has raised concerns about the killer's ability to use their insider knowledge to manipulate the investigation and remain elusive for so long. While most experts believe the murders were carried out by a single individual, some have suggested the possibility of multiple perpetrators. This theory stems from variations in the state of decomposition and burial methods among the victims. For example, while some bodies were left exposed, others were wrapped in burlap sacks. These differences have led some to question whether more than one person was involved. However, this idea has not gained as much traction as the single killer theory and remains a less popular explanation. Rilowich's arrest, another perspective, considers the killer's motives, suggesting they may not have exclusively targeted sex workers. While many of the victims were involved in the sex trade, some were not, which complicates the narrative. This theory posits that the killer may have chosen their victims based on personal, psychological, or situational factors rather than profession alone. For instance, the killer may have been driven by a deeper psychological need or fixation, selecting victims based on their appearance, behavior, or vulnerability. This perspective broadens the potential profile of the killer and challenges the assumption that their motives were purely opportunistic. The tragic case of Shannan Gilbert remains central to the LISK investigation, largely due to the relentless efforts of her mother, Mary Gilbert. Mari's determination to uncover the truth about her daughter's death brought much-needed attention to the case. Despite facing numerous obstacles, Mari's advocacy kept Shannan's story in the public eye and highlighted the systemic failures in the investigation. Mary's tragic death in 2016, at the hands of her daughter's ex-boyfriend, only added to the family's heartbreak. However, her tireless work left a lasting legacy, inspiring continued efforts to seek justice for Shannan and the other victims of the Long Island serial killer. The mishandling of critical evidence by the Suffolk County Police Department significantly hindered the progress of Shannan's case.
After an exhaustive, methodical, massive search, we have this day at approximately 9:14 a.m. located a set of skeletal remains we believe at this time to belong to the missing Shannan Gilbert.
Poor communication with the Gilbert family and the mishandling of key evidence created delays and left many questions unanswered. This lack of coordination and accountability has been a source of frustration for those seeking closure and justice. Despite the challenges, the search for answers continues. Shannan's case remains open, with her family and supporters refusing to give up hope. The persistence of advocates and the renewed focus on the investigation underscore the importance of seeking justice for the victims. Shannan's story serves as a stark reminder of the need to protect vulnerable individuals and to hold institutions accountable when they fall short. The Long Island serial killer case remains one of the most infamous unsolved mysteries in American history. As we honor the memories of the victims and their families, we're reminded that justice is still within reach. If you or someone you know has information about the case, now is the time to come forward. Together, we can bring closure to the families and ensure that justice is served.